Love.
Hey, this is Cody. I wanted to do a ScreenFlow video where I can kind of go through an episode of a podcast, edit out all of the bad parts that I normally do before I start mixing. And I wanted to ScreenFlow this, that way you can get a feel for kind of how I do things, and maybe pick up a few tricks along the way. Now, I already started this episode. This is going to be 148 for the Foundation show, starting from nothing. I already started a little bit, but I still have a lot of the episode left to go, so that's why I decided to turn the video on and go from here. I'm just going to play. I'm going to edit like I normally edit. You might hear a few things, but just take notice of where I make edits, how I do them, where the crossfades need to be, and and just kind of get a feel for how I do it so that we can get onto a system here. So I'm just gonna keep trucking forward on this episode.
Love. And so I dragged my feet a little bit, but back in November of 2014, I finally, took the bait, so to speak, and I said, whatever, I'm going to start a blog, and it's probably not going to go anywhere, but I'm going to try it. So I bought the domain proofreadanywhere.com, thinking it was just going to be a blog. And then, as a side thing, I would offer, one-on-one coaching like I was already doing. And, I put together a 30-page ebook, which was abysmal in comparison to what I offer now. It's just kind of funny. If your first product didn't totally suck and you're not embarrassed about it, you didn't put it out there quick enough. That's what everybody says now. And I agree with that, because you don't know until you try to teach it, and then everybody tells you where the holes are. So it was quite a good thing, even though, I didn't like the product later on, but I had to learn WordPress and learn how to kind of put all that together. How do you get a shopping cart on your website? I don't even know how to sell something. I didn't even know how to create a website at all. And so that's where I started, and that was in November, but then we took that product down in January because Ben, who was continuing with the foundation at the time, he was part of the August of 2014 class, and he said, we should do online. And then I was like, oh, great. I just got done writing this ebook, and, I've sold 15 or 17 some copies of it. And I was like, yeah, that's too much work. I don't think I can actually teach how to read by using videos and things like that. I think what we have is fine. And then I started thinking more about it and doing more research, and started seeing, you can use different platforms to build online courses. You can do it on WordPress. You can own it yourself. You don't have to pay, commit.
I want to stop because I just heard a little glitch. It's not actually a glitch, so if you're curious as we go through, I don't want you to think that this is getting messed up. Once I cut out any of these blank spaces, I let the track keep playing. So once the audio kind of refreshes up with the new edit, there's sometimes a little clip like that, a little glitch that you hear. It's not actually a problem. It's just the computer, when it's playing the waveform, just takes a minute to catch up with itself. So just wanted to point that out before you think anything is wrong.
Have to pay, commissions through Udemy or give them any rights or anything like that to discount to pay. Commission.
I'm going to cut out this here.
Commissions through Udemy or give them any rights or, commissions through Udemy or give them any rights or anything like that to discount your courses to $9 at the drop of a hat or anything like that. And so more I kind of researched on it, I was like, well, I can build this myself, and we can expand on what we offer in the ebook and, do screencast tutorial videos. I had to figure out that it was possible first, what I wanted to do. Can I plug my iPad into a computer and record what I'm doing on the screen? Yes. Okay, well, that changes everything, because now I can show people one-on-one, what I do on my iPad to mark up these transcripts, or how to set up my app and things like that. And so I got more faith down the ebook, kept the website up, and we had built a list of 200. And so I was actually a little nervous. I was like, oh my gosh, we're not gonna have anything to sell. People are gonna go to our website and they're not gonna have anything to buy. And I was just so worried about it. But we had such a small list, and there was really no reason to worry. So I just got to work figuring out the new plugins that I was using to build the course and really bootstrapping it. I really had very little faith that it was going to turn into anything. And so I didn't want to spend a lot of money. I didn't want to pay for, Fedora or Kajabi or any of those, SaaS products that you pay like 80 to $100 something dollars a month just to be able to build your course on it. And, some of them take commissions, things like that. Well, I wanted to totally do it where, okay, one time to use the plugin and that's it. That way, if I lose money or if nothing happens, then nothing happens and I don't lose very much. So I probably spent about $500 when I finally bought like a main theme and the plugins to build the course and stuff like that, just because I had very little faith it was going to turn into anything. But we ended up launching the course in its first form February 16th of 2015. So it's in about a week we'll be at the 1 year course anniversary is what we've been calling it. Yeah, that's when we first launched the course and we started taking sales. And so from started taking sales. And
So from February to May, what
sales and
So from February to May, what happened? February 2015 to May 2015, what happened with you guys when you really just did like a soft launch? You mentioned that the list was really only at 200 when you started that process. How did those first few months go for you?
Yeah, so I had somebody email me. They're like, "Hey, I was wondering, if I could be in a." Yeah, so I had somebody email me. They're like, "Hey, I was wondering, if I could be an affiliate in your course, and I think that my audience would really like it." I was like, "Okay, well, I guess I'll give this a shot." And then I had never really thought about using other people to market for me at that point, but I figured, well, if she wants to market for me, then I bet some other people will want to market for me. And so I started just kind of looking around for people in the work at home niche that were offering ways to make money from home that they didn't have anything about proofreading. And so I would just reach out to them and say, hey, I've got this really cool course and I'm launching it. Do you want to promote it? I pay, at the time it was $75 per sale on a $380 product or a course. And I somehow got people to be on board and like the product or a course, and I somehow got people to be on board and put their faith in me that I knew what I was doing, and they made money. And so once I had one or two people that were making money for sales, that information to write to other people that were in the niche that maybe were a little bit bigger bloggers that weren't, they had a lot of people making offers to them. And so they probably wanted more social proof that it was worth their time. And so I said, hey, so-and-so, I wrote to them and I said, hey, I'm looking to build my affiliate team. And so-and-so has been promoting for just a week and they've already made $150. And I gave them some numbers and, mentioned names of other bloggers that I'm sure they've heard of or seen in Pinterest or whatever. And I got them on board too. And I just started slowly building a network. And I remember Dane had said, you weren't afraid to reach out to these bloggers that have been, in business for 20 times longer than you. I was like, no, they could have said no, but I really at that point did believe that the product that I had, the course that I had was life-changing. And I think I didn't really let fear get in my way, which is kind of ironic because it had gotten in my way so much prior to that. So we basically just grew our affiliate network and, gave them rules to, sell more and gave them tools to gave them tools to just through our affiliate network and, gave them tools to, sell more and communicate to their audience. We did interviews. We really feel like interviews is a great way to sell more and communicate to their audience. We did interviews. I
was gonna cut out just,
sell more and
but sometimes when I try to make these edits, it doesn't make the word that's coming after it clear, so I just have to leave it in.
Gave them tools to, sell more and communicate to their audience. We did interviews. We really feel like interviews is a great way to build trust, which is a great way to
use this great way that she said the third time. It sounds better.
This is a great way to
Cut out this first one.
interviews is a great way to build.
Sometimes you don't even need a crossfade. It sounds good.
I feel like interviews is a great way to build trust with another blogger's audience. So you're brand new as a blogger. You have a course that nobody's ever heard of, and a niche that nobody's ever heard of. But if this blogger interviews you and they're like, "Hey, tell us about what you do," and they get information out of. But if this blogger interviews you and they're like, "Hey, tell us about what you do," and they get information out of you, they're introducing you to their audience as if you were a friend and not a salesperson. Whereas, people talk about guest posting, blah, blah, blah. Well, a lot of times that can appear to a blogger's audience like they've handed off the reins to their blog or their information to some kind of salesperson. Whereas if the blogger interviews somebody, it just frames it totally different. The reins to their blog or their information to some kind of salesperson, whereas if the blogger interviews somebody, it just frames it totally differently, and you get to piggyback on their trust that the audience has for them. And so I really feel like doing that, gave us a lot of clout, so to speak, and we started compiling a press page where we included links to all of the posts that we were mentioned in or that we did interviews on. So we just spread across the internet in the work at home niche, and before we knew it, like, we kind of became the go-to reference for people who wanted to make money proofreading.
Awesome. I'm curious, right? If you had like a rough estimate of the amount of people that you reached out to versus the number of people or bloggers or communities that accepted you as affiliates, what did that look like? Like, how successful were you at converting these potential affiliate deals to actually working with you?
That's a good question, and I'm surprised to look back and see that I had a pretty good.
So I'm going to stop there. That is one way, excuse me, one way of editing the show where I listen through and I actually take out everything that I hear, all of these background noises that are happening while the guest is talking or vice versa, the ums and the ahs and things like that. Now, there's other types of shows that we'll work on that want to keep more of a live format, and they don't want to cut out any of those pauses or gaps. They just want to keep it as is. In that case, what I do for those is I will go through, and when I see some noise like this on the track that isn't in the middle of talking, I will mute that. I will check when the conversation changes from the guest to the host, I will make sure there's no awkward gaps there, but otherwise I'll keep everything the same. So again, here's some noise on this track. I'll make sure this is a clean transition here.
And being a partner with you.
Well, you definitely have to have.
So that was a little long for my taste, so I'll cut out that breath, fade it in.
Being a partner with you.
Well, you definitely have to have an established blog, and that is.
And a lot of this is personal preference, but that's just kind of what I like. So these ones are quicker because you don't have to listen through. You just go through and try to use your eye and spot. Sometimes I'll actually mute this entire opposite track when they're not talking. But when I do mixing, I also have a gate, so I don't have to worry too much about that. It's just kind of, if I notice a lot of it, I will go ahead and cut it out. Sometimes when they're short, you might want to make sure that the host did not make a comment or make a laugh or something like that. Sometimes I want to keep those in. Let's see what this one sounds like.
Until they shut up. And so I raised the bar, and I raised the bar, and raised the bar, and now I have.
So that didn't really add anything to the conversation, so I'm going to get rid of it. Sometimes if they make a comment in the middle, if they laugh or something, add a joke, sometimes it's worth it, but usually I will just mix that. So let's try this one.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, I can't say that I was totally proud with how I responded to this. You haven't even seen my course. I would just ask for just me. And so a lot of it was just.
Again, it's a laugh, but it's not really, it doesn't really sound good. It doesn't really add anything to the content, so I'm going to mute it.
Actually a libel, if you say something untrue about somebody to other people. I actually don't have an attorney. But
I'll keep that one in. It was a little harsh. Maybe I'll lower the volume a little bit. Just so it's not crazy loud.
feeling like an imposter. Like, what if
Yeah.
these people are right? Because these people are like in their 50s, 60s.
That was fine.
I love that. I love how we tied it back into ultimately why in sales funnel.
So another really good
So
question.
that was a long break, so I wanted to cut that one out. Sometimes, by the way, when they record on Skype, sometimes the sync is a little off. And if I come across a new episode like that, I will show you. But sometimes, let's see, just for the sake of example, sometimes the transitions between when the conversation switches will be lined up like, well, I don't want to waste time showing you that right now. Sometimes they might be lined up like this, so the sync is off. Like when they were talking to each other, they didn't talk over each other, but for whatever reason, when it was recorded, it was a little bit out of sync. That happens sometimes, so just be aware of that. Sometimes you might have to shove one part of the conversation left or right a bit to make it match. I will probably do that because I don't want that. Again, going through, here's a bunch of these.
Many like different complexities to it, but
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
Okay.
So it's hard to see if you look and you see you got versions from Pinterest, Google Analytics. So there's
Okay.
a lot of complexities that go into it, but
Didn't like that one. I like the other ones though.
humans. And so if
Yeah.
you can figure out how to be more human in your business, then
Hey, all that sounds good. A lot of the times I'm used to doing this, so I just go off the visuals. I can tell that this conversation is going to switch okay. It doesn't have much of a gap. Here's some noise. Mute that. Some more noise, etc., etc. Also, I'll mention this as I'm scrolling through. Zoom in a bit and scroll through, and if you see any gaps, just in one person's talking. So let's see.
we just really grew.
Sometimes long waveforms like that can just come off as they can be ums. So as you go through, if you notice any crazy ones, you can look for those. But mainly looking for the spaces. Now here's a part where they kind of talk over each other a bit, so I'm going to make sure that sounds clean.
You can do that. So
Wow.
yeah.
Okay, so 7-day intro course.
So I don't hate it. Sometimes I'll mute the other person, that way they're not over each other. But I don't mind it. They're having a conversation. It's not going to be perfectly clean. That's fine. I like to hear, how people normally talk.
Like for you.
So that was a little hairy. we had fun with it, but we have a little Eagle Eye finger puppet. He's really cute. His name is Eagle Eyes, and he's just an eagle. He's a little puppet. And we started out just posting, but no.
Cool. Okay. All right. Well, that might be. We might have to table that slide.
Yeah. So we are taking major action. I'm hiring people to help me get more organized. Got a blogging assistant now that we're trying to monetize more of the blog posts. So we're doing some more affiliate. That's what I'm working on right now. Because transcription is such a giant niche in comparison to proofreading, we've been interviewing people using transcription for the blog, and we're doing some major.
That's an annoying thing too, depending on the connection. If the guest is wearing headphones, once someone talks, it kind of cuts the other person's mic out a little bit. It's a pretty frustrating thing about Skype, but in this case, there's not much you can do about it, because even if I mute this guy, you still hear the interruption in the other voice.
Using transcription for the blog, and
so cutting it out won't really make much of a difference. So sometimes you just have to just deal with it and leave it in.
Whoa. Okay, well, yeah, definitely we'll be talking about that in podcast 3 sometime in the next 12 months. Okay, well, yeah, definitely we'll be talking about that.
So he cuts in and kind of takes it over, so I'm going to get rid of that word. That way it doesn't sound awkward.
Whoa. Okay, well, yeah, definitely we'll be talking about that in podcast.
Again, it got cut off a little bit just from the interruption, but there's really nothing that you can do about it, so we just have to leave it sometimes. Scrolling through. Here's another point where they talk with each other. I'm just going to check that out.
Are you going to buy a Tesla with that, Caitlin, when you get back?
Not when we get back, but it's on my list.
Sounds fine. The last important thing that you want to look at is the closing. Sometimes, actually I should say most of the time, the host is going to send me a separate outro that I will use at the end. But what you want to do is just make sure the conversation kind of ends normally. Usually say bye to each other, bye to the audience, and And if there's any mistakes, I can obviously fix it when I assemble the episode, but I just want to listen to the end of this.
Thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it. And I hope to bring you back for part 3 sometime when we can talk about where you've gone since now.
Yeah, thanks so much, Frank. We'll talk to you next time.
Sounds good. Thanks, Galen. See ya.
And now it's totally fine, so I will leave it. Just cut the garbage off the end. Now that you have this completely edited, let's go ahead and, depending on your DAW, it might be different, but I'm just going to set markers that that will grab the entire waveform. And wow, this was 50 minutes long. Crazy conversation. Anyways, so there's 2 ways to export. One, you can solo each track. And remember, you want to send these raw with no FX, no plugins or anything, no automation, so just raw files. In Logic, I know there's 2 ways. In the other DAWs, I assume it's similar. I can go ahead and solo each track one at a time and bounce a new WAV file. Or one thing I can do in Logic is combine all of these edits into a new file, which takes, it's usually a little bit quicker than bouncing to disk because I'm bouncing regions in place. At least that's what it's called in Logic. So it tends to be a little faster. Looks like it's moving a lot faster than I'm used to seeing when I bounce episodes. So I'll create one new file out of this. And it looks like it did not include everything that was muted. I don't know why it keeps them. It still keeps them there. It's kind of strange, but it doesn't include them in the new file. I can right-click, or actually, excuse me, I need to open my bin here, and the new track is right here, AIF. Save region as, or it's also in my episode folder, my project folder, I should say. The new file is the AIF. Logic always creates AIFs. So you can use this one, send it to me that way. I know it's quicker. The decision is yours, whatever is easiest for you. And that is basically how we go through and do the editing for an episode. So I hope this helps. Again, we covered 2 different types of episodes. One where you have to listen through the entire thing. Another where you can just scroll through, check the ins and outs, check the background noise, and just kind of clean it up a little bit. So depending on the type of episode you're working on, hopefully this will help you. If you have any questions, always reach out to me on the Slack group, or you can text me, call me, whatever you need, and I will explain everything and make sure you're good to go. All right, thanks for watching.